will now come to order. Please call the roll. Here.
Basie?
Here.
Bonson?
Here.
Bona?
Present.
Horton?
Here.
Here. McNeil?
Present.
Redmond? Runyon?
Here.
Okay, there being a quorum, this is going to be kind of a crazy meeting today. What we're going to do is we're going to do House Bill 923 by Representative Miller first. And then what we'll do is we'll go into 481. We're at the point where the testimony against is up. And then when I get back, we will interrupt 481 and go into another one because we have out-of-town experts on 1084. So this is going to be kind of nuts. So I am going to turn the floor over to Representative Colonna.
Oh, goodness.
Don't let it go to your head.
Right.
Me?
Oh,
You
my.
do it up to
Oh,
Item on here, House Bill 923, sponsored by Representative Miller. Representative, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to bring this House bill before you. For the record, I'm Rocky Miller, representative from District 124, the Lake of the Ozarks area. In 2014, Governor Nixon issued an executive order number 1406, which directed the Division of Energy to develop a comprehensive energy plan. The Division of Energy then put together a 55-member steering committee for this energy plan. In addition, they hired a contractor to facilitate the process and began having public meetings. The unfortunate part of this needed process was that it did not involve a single sitting member of the General Assembly. This is odd, since we are some of the policy experts in the state. I issued a press release stating my concerns at the time and was told not to worry, we would be involved with it after it was complete. To be honest, I think it would have been a better process if the General Assembly would have had input at the very beginning. The legislation is to ensure that we have that input. It would require our approval of any energy plan. This bill may seem a little bit broad because I fully understand that there are several parts of a good energy plan. It will probably be part executive order, part rulemaking, and part statute. The General Assembly would of course have input on the statutes. However, I think it is important for the state, for its elected representatives to have input on all of the plan. Therefore, the need for the broad legislation. That is what this bill does, and I will be open for questions at this time.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, gentlemen, you can call your first witness. Sorry, that's for court, gentlemen. Any supporters to testify?
I have no idea.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm David Clint, representing the Missouri Electric Cooperatives, and we are in support of this bill.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Representative McNeil,
Thank you for the choir.
proceed.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, so have you seen, and I should ask also our sponsor, but we've had past energy plans, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the process in the past?
Well, I think the last one they actually had officially was in '92. I could be wrong on
That's a long
that.
time ago.
But I have seen the plan just because I asked for it a few years ago and nobody knew where it was. And I think after the plan was printed, it was put on the shelf, and that was what happened.
Do you happen to know whether the legislature was involved in that on the committee or in the process?
That was even before my time, believe it or not. So.
Yeah. And Representative, do you have any idea?
I do not know.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to know if there was precedent. So thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you. Any other witnesses to testify in favor of House Bill 923? Any witnesses to testify against House Bill 923? Any witnesses? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well,
Sorry, Representative McNeil.
yeah, may I ask the sponsor a question, please?
Oh, proceed.
And, gentlemen, I thought maybe this would come up. So basically, do you have any concern about the fact, I mean, there's always the thing, you know, the bigger the committee, the more difficult it is to pass something and get approval. So we have a 55-member committee, and it's composed of energy specialists. Is that correct? Who is on the current commission?
It's utilities, Conservation Federation, Sierra Club, Fairfax, groups like that. You know, basically anybody that has skin in the game as far as energy in the state of Missouri.
Right, so those that actually produce it or really have, yeah. And so 55 is a large committee, that's a large committee. But really what we're doing with your bill is expanding it to 200 members.
And I get that. The big problem is the concern I have, probably like yours is, we need this. We truly need this, we need something that we update. So I can almost promise you that the chair of the Energy and Environment Committee will do his best to make sure that whatever we get for our approval is more of a synopsis and where we're going to head as an energy plan. The energy plan itself may be voluminous, you know, and that is an impossibility. So what we really need is an energy plan itself would be a smaller document, and that's the piece that I'm talking about that we approve, you know, where we at on that. And I think that's something we can all get around. I mean, we want energy that's affordable, that's reliable, that is environmentally sensitive. And I don't think I seriously don't think there's anybody in the House or the Senate that feels otherwise. And that's what I'm pretty sure we're going to be approving.
Okay, so you basically, after the committee does their work, then they will do like a abstract of it, and we will approve the abstract,
We will approve the overall plan.
the overall plan. But it does have to have, and you know what, I do have to say, I applaud this effort because I think, as the gentleman said before, as Ms., you know, 1992, sat on the shelf, nobody knew where it was, nobody used it. And so this is actually a way for at least one person in every district in the state to hear it, to know it, and perhaps take it back to their constituents, and perhaps it will be more active and actually be acted on more.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with the process that they use. I just wish we would have been involved, to be quite honest. I think that's the little bit of disappointing part of the whole deal. But now we'll get in it. We'll look at it. This is a priority that I've been told by the leadership to make sure that this goes through. So this is not going to be set on a shelf. This, in at least my mind, and I think others, is going to be a living document that every 2-3 years we go back and we review and we come back and get. But I do think it's important that we weigh in on it.
And do you know if any other other states have energy plans, and do you know if it's common for legislatures to approve?
It's common for them to approve part of it because it's just the way it's built. A lot of energy plans have statute as part of it, so that's immediately where it comes into. This actually, I think, will streamline what we're doing. We're going to have if you just see a piece of something, it's hard to understand where does that piece sit in. So they will come to us with pieces of statute that they'll expect us to work with. If we just have pieces, it makes it hard to understand and see where it fits into the overall plan. And I like this idea because we'll get to see the entire plan, and then we'll approve the entire plan. I can't see us disapproving it unless, that would be odd, you know. And we will have our input and go from there. So yes, they do have partial input on it. I think it's great that we're going to have, you know, not a large amount of input, but we're going to be able to see the overall plan and approve it.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any further questions? Representative Corlin,
To inquire,
proceed.
thank you. Thank you, Representative, for bringing forth this bill, and forgive me, I know we had an overview earlier in the session, but could you just remind the committee, are we on a certain timeline under the executive order when an energy plan will be completed and when we might actually be called upon to approve?
Yeah, the energy plan has to be completed by the Division of Energy by May 31st of this year. So we'll be out of session when they finalize their portion of it. I actually envision us getting the final plan. We'll probably have meetings during the summer to go over it, to look at it, and to give our input. And then I would imagine the beginning of next session is when we actually go to the approval process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Representative Miller before we get back to anyone to testify for informational purposes only? Gentlemen, please don't forget to fill out a witness form.
Thank you. My name is Andy Knott. I'm with the Sierra Club, and going out on a limb here because I didn't even know that this was on the agenda, but I guess I certainly appreciate the having more input. I think that's good. I think my question is, if there are executive orders that are anticipated in the energy plan, is there a constitutional issue with having those pre-approved by the legislature? That's my only concern.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? Anyone else testify for informational purposes? Gentlemen, you have any closing remarks?
Sure. Just clarification. This in no means, as far as I know, the governor can do his executive orders anytime he wants. And so this would not have an effect on those. This just has an effect on the plan as itself, to give us an overview of it. Thank you very much.
I see no further questions. That'll close the hearing on House Bill 923. Thank you. We'll now reconvene the hearing on House Bill 481 being presented by Representative Berry. I believe we were on testimony in opposition to the bill. Are there any people here to testify in opposition to House Bill 481? And as always, gentlemen, please don't forget to fill out a witness form.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Brent Stewart with the Rural Electric Cooperatives, and I have here today our resident expert on net metering, solar, energy efficiency, and the like. It's David Ramsey. He's a former manager of one of our distribution co-ops and currently works for Associated Electric, our generation co-op that deals with net metering down in Springfield. I just have a few brief remarks before I turn it over to Dave. We actually agree with Representative Berry that net metering is really, when you dig into it, a lot more complicated than it appears on the surface. And I appreciate that statement when he introduced the bill. He also said something that I definitely agree with, and that is fairness is one of the key issues as you dig into the weeds on this. And fairness not only for those co-op members who elect to get into self-generation, distributed generation, solar, but also for the rest of our members who may not have the ability to afford those types of systems. So there's a balance that we need to strike here. Both of those, our members who go the self-generation route, and obviously those who don't, both are dependent upon our cooperative electric systems. And again, we appreciate you talking about the fairness issue. We do have some numbers that we will be presenting today, and we've already met with Representative Berry, I don't remember what month it was, up at Boone Electric to go over some assumptions and figures for that particular co-op. And we appreciate the dialogue and hope it continues along those lines. A couple of quick key points. The co-ops are not against distributed generation or solar panels or wind, or are we against our members who want to do that. We are a member-run organization. We basically do what the members want. Some of the co-op core principles of why we exist include local member control over their own system, their rates, the way the thing is run, what policies they adopt. We're very strong for community education of our members. We do a lot of things with our member service representatives. For example, if I wanted to put a solar panel on my home, the co-op would send someone out to work through all the details and help me do that. And we're also very concerned about the communities in which we live. Now, co-ops are primarily rural. We're not allowed, for the most part, to serve in cities or towns over 1,500 population. We're out in the rural areas. But they're still a rural community, and we're very concerned about that, and we do a lot to try to educate in the community at large. Another key point that you have to keep in mind is the co-op type of an electric system is unique, and it's unique in many ways. I won't go through all of those, but there's some key points there. As you're looking at net metering or any other energy policy question that comes before the General Assembly, you have to keep in mind what might be appropriate for an Ameren or a Kansas City Power and Light may not be for a co-op system. For example, what might work for Ameren would not work for Howard Electric Co-op that only has 3,500 members and averages 3.8 members per mile of line. Or United Co-op up in the northwest corner where David originally came from, where they've got 3,700 members but only 2.92 members per mile of line. Second key point is that not on? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you didn't want to hear that anyway.
I heard it.
The second key point, it's not a question of profits for the co-ops. It's rather a question of fairness to all of our members, and that's those with distributed generation and those without. Everyone on the co-op system should pay their fair share of the co-op's cost of providing electric service to the entire membership. If one member stops paying their fair share, his neighbor has to pick up those costs in his rates. Another unique piece of the puzzle, and this will come into play with one of the proposed changes, is that the co-op, unlike Ameren or Kansas City Power and Light or even the municipal systems, we operate on a 3-tier system. The co-op that you buy your power from is not the same co-op that generates the power, and that creates some interesting mechanical issues when it comes to the co-ops offering net generation. Today, for example, for those members who have their solar panels or distributed generation, you heard earlier about avoided cost and how that's all calculated. Well, that's actually done at the associated level, our wholesale provider, rather than at the distribution level. We have like 40 distribution cooperatives. They all have their own different rate structures and everything else, but for purposes of net metering, we deal with the wholesale generator. And that is something that needs to be kept in mind as we look at changes to the net metering law. The other night, I mentioned in a different hearing about the unique co-op demographics, and I didn't have the numbers with me at the time, but let me just run through these. This is from our most recent customer survey. The average income of a co-op member is between $25,000 and $50,000 a year. 40% of those report a gross income of less than $50,000 a year, with 16% of these making less than $25,000 a year. Estimated 80% of our members are over age 45. Nearly half live in 2-person households. 1/3 of them have 3 or more people. And of course, those larger households use 2/3 more energy than a single-person household and 30% more than a two-person household. Most of our members own their homes, and most of these homes are over 25 years old. 41% of our members have been members for more than 25 years. 47% are employed. 37% are retired or on a pension. And we have about 4% that report that they're unemployed. 35% are 65 years or older, and of course most of those are retired, although a lot of them still work on their farms. And about half of those seniors make less than $50,000 a year, with 1/3 less than $25,000 a year. The reason that that's important in this discussion is because, as you all know, the co-ops and all electric providers are facing some major challenges coming down the road with EPA regulations and other things that increase the cost. And of course, one of our main concerns is that we do everything we can at all levels to try to keep those costs down. I just conclude with saying that as we continue this discussion, it's important that we strike the balance between those that can afford distributed generation and those who can't. I would point out that the current law, as it's currently structured, shifts fixed and demand costs to the majority of the rest of the members, and as more and more of our members move toward distributed generation, the more, I'll call her Aunt Millie, on the other side has to pick up, the more costs they have to pick up. Unfortunately, the way the proposals are currently drafted, for the most part, they exacerbate that inherent subsidy and cost shift. And they offer no mechanism for our co-op boards to deal with these questions of fairness at the local level. And so we would be interested in discussing the possibility of maybe going down that road too, and looking for a way to deal with that. And with that, I'll turn it over to David, now that I've got the mic on.
Well, good morning to the chairman and to the members of the committee. For the record, my name is David Ramsey. I am the Energy Efficiency Program Manager for Associated Electric in Springfield, Missouri. We're the generating arm of the electric three-tiered cooperative family in Missouri. And we are going to hand out, we're in the process of handing out some slides that might be of help in this discussion. And I will wait a few minutes until we get those out, and then I'll make a few brief comments going through those slides, if I may, and then certainly be open to any questions you might have. As you look at it, one of the things that I want to point out is, as Brent has mentioned already, is that the cooperatives are not opposed to renewable energy. If you look at the first page of this handout, you will see that in 2014, that pie chart that you see there on the left talks about our fuel supply that we use to supply our member owners with electricity during 2014. And as you can see, wind energy was a big part of that, a growing part of that. Hydropower as well. So you can see our mix. I do want to point out, because that is my core job, I said I do renewables in the evenings, it seems like, but my core job is energy efficiency. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, certainly want to point out the fact that we have a program called Take Control and Save. And over the last 7 years, we spent $34.5 million, and we have saved 1.2 billion kilowatt hours over the life cycle of those investments we've made. So we take energy efficiency very important as well. On the second handout, you'll see about the fact that we are and have won awards for being leaders in wind energy. We were the first utility in the state to bring large-scale wind into our portfolio mix, and you'll see those farms listed there on the top. We have 5 currently in operation today. Our bottom, if you look at Osage down there in the bottom right-hand corner of that top slide, you'll see that Osage is coming online hopefully in June or July of this year. So that will bring our total wind capacity to 750 megawatts with that additional 150 that's coming on from Osage. I would anticipate that pie chart will look a little different come 2016. Obviously, we'll only have that for part of this year, but I think we'll see a larger piece of that pie reflected in wind. The bar chart at the bottom of that shows you what we have connected in distributed generation across our system. Those are these that are under a net metering agreement with Associated Electric and one of our co-op distribution cooperatives. As you can see, the gold bar is the solar piece of that mix, and it continues to grow and has grown under the current net metering statute. If you get to the next slide, and it's this, I'm going to have to say that I may not be able to answer all the questions on this. Boone Electric Cooperative at Columbia put together a study, and Chris was unfortunately unable to attend this morning, and so there may be a question or two I might not be able to answer. But the crux of this chart is that as you go from left to right on the chart, there are two different lines, of course. The blue that says Form 7 is basically the cooperative's financial report at the end of the year. That's what they use to report their financials. It's their income statement. And they've taken and used those numbers and broken it out, and we're going to go to that in the next chart. But as we do that, as you move to the right, and the percentage at the bottom shows that if we had 1% of our members had net metering, and if you go up the chart, you'd be looking around $5 a month that would be shifted to the rest of the membership. That cost has to be borne to maintain the system, the transmission and the distribution system. As you go further to the right, if we were to reach a 10% penetration level on that blue line, you'd be looking at about $76 a month that the rest of the members would have to participate. So 90% of the members are paying that $76 a month additional cost that are not being borne by that person with the net metering or distributed generation. If you go to the next pie chart, and this is a breakdown of the cost of a kilowatt hour, basically. And if you look at it, there's three major component parts of that. One is the energy cost, one is the demand or capacity cost, and then the chart on the right basically shows you the cost associated with that cooperative maintaining that distribution system that I might point out is used by those people that have net metering, probably more so than those that are just buying power from it. Not only do they buy power from us, but they also sell power. So they're using that distribution system to both buy and sell. But if you look at the pink chart, that variable component, wholesale power purchase, it represents less than 33% of every dollar that co-op takes in each month. The blue component part is basically what comes to Associated Electric and our G&T middle tier owner. That's what we have to spend, whether we sell a kilowatt hour or not. That's what we have to maintain those power plants, our transmission lines, and have them ready when our consumers ask for power. So that's the component part. And of course, the piece on the right is what that cooperative is going to have, and that is not offset by net metering, neither is the blue part. The only piece is that 33%. That's the only piece that we do not have to expend on a monthly basis or to sell a kilowatt hour. If we don't have to generate a kilowatt hour, that's the piece we save. That's the offset piece. Right now, we talk about avoided cost, and that's basically what that avoided cost is. If you go to the next charts, Brent mentioned that we are a little different than our city cousins, both Ameren and KCP&L. We have a system peak that's a little different, and that's when our members need the most electricity at one given time. And that usually occurs in January. We are a winter peaking. You can see our historical season peaks. Our largest peak was set on, as you can see, January 6th of 2014. Just under 4,600 megawatt hours is what our members asked for us to provide that day. And we were fortunate enough to have the capacity to be able to do that. As you can look down there, it has bounced back and forth a little bit, but traditionally we are a winter peaking utility. And I'm going to ask you to flip back and forth on this. I apologize for that. We got them out of order a little bit as I look at it. If you go to that next slide, the blue line is going to show you what our traditional day would look like in both July and January. And as you can see in January, the lower chart, we basically get no value out of a solar unit on a January day. Our peak is typically around that hour 7 o'clock in the morning when people are getting up, they're cooking breakfast, and they're getting ready to go to work. And so we don't have any solar capacity on us. The red line is showing you when that solar output is actually going to occur. Starts in there about hour 8 in January and ends somewhere about hour 5. Conversely, in July, in the summertime, we will also set a secondary peak in July. And as you can see, our blue line is going to peak somewhere around hour 6 or hour 7. And the solar is already starting to fade off at that point in time. So solar, unfortunately, does not do us any good from a capacity standpoint. We still have to have all of our resources available to supply our member owners. If you flip back to the chart, and again, I apologize for the out of order, that looks, the April month is this one, the one with the numbers on it, ma'am, I'm sorry. And that shows you an April day, and again, the solar, even in our, what we call our shoulder months of spring and fall, the solar capacity really doesn't do us any good because we typically will peak in those shoulder months in the late evening when people are coming home from work. Now, again, I apologize for all the flipping, but if you go back to the last slide, a point I'd like to make. This was a study that Associated Electric conducted in the fall of 2013. We used some software from the National Renewable Energies Laboratory, and it's a government agency that has some software that we were able to get. We plugged in the data for the Midwest, for Missouri. And as we look at it, and we ran some scenarios, it's a busy chart. If I can take a few minutes and walk you through it. If you look at the bar chart at the bottom, that is the installed cost of a watt of PV, photovoltaic solar array. So if you go over here on the left, that $3 a watt, you can see there's 3 component parts: the panel, labor, and the balance of plant cost. If you were to buy a solar panel today, based on the NREL numbers, at $3 a watt, our analysis shows that the cost per kilowatt hour is 17 cents a kilowatt hour out of that. Now that's going to compare to most of our electric cooperatives at somewhere around 10 cents. So it is at a premium according to our study and what NREL does. Conversely, if you go down to the bottom chart, if you look at that, that's the years to payback at that corresponding rate. So if you look in 2013 at $3 a watt, if you're installing that at 17 cents, we're anticipating that it would take you, based on this software analysis, somewhere between 18 and 19 years to get your money back out of that. Again, just want to reiterate that we are not opposed to renewables. We certainly connect any and all that come before us. I handle those contracts, and we are continuing to see growth in it. The one chart you saw was actually from December of 2014. We've signed an additional 40 contracts this year alone, so that chart is already outdated. We are not opposed to it, but we want to do it where it makes economic sense for our member owners, and we're trying to look out for them. And with that, I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak to you today, and certainly welcome any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative McNeil.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your testimony. Have you surveyed any of your members on their interest in renewables and solar, that kind of thing?
We certainly have. Some of our cooperatives are interested in it. They're getting their members asking about it. We actually, and I didn't include it in my testimony, but we have worked with our cooperative, distribution cooperatives to put in place a rate structure that allows them to do what's called community solar. And that's where a group of people would come together and build a little larger array. There's some economies of scale. Hopefully you can drop that price per watt down. And the cooperative can install and build one of these and offer it then solar energy to their member owners without the issues of maintenance of the array on their house or in their backyard, without the issues of liability that's associated with generating. These things do generate. There is some liability associated with it, and without the maintenance. And so the cooperative would be able to maintain that. We actually have one cooperative, Platte Clay Electric, in Kearney, Missouri, which has just recently started a project of that nature. This was done based on the survey that they had members that were interested. And so their goal is to sell that array out to those interested members. We've done some, and some of the cooperatives have done it, and they've not had enough interest to justify the expense and time and effort in it.
I'm pleased to hear that. I have a bill dealing with solar gardens, so thank you. So you mentioned in your testimony the net metering being at wholesale level, and in this bill, it does address minimum minimum bills or minimum, what was the one, how does it call it? Minimum, yeah, the minimum bill. So does that address any of the expenses that you might deal with?
It does. The current average minimum bill on the cooperative system is somewhere between $20 and $25 a month. Unfortunately, those fixed costs associated with just the cooperative alone will typically run somewhere between $42 and $60 a month, and that's typical of any utility. If you look at a customer charge or minimum bill, that is not recovering anywhere near the fixed cost. And so when you look at a kilowatt hour, it has those three component parts that I mentioned: the energy, the cost of the fuel to generate a kilowatt hour, the demand or capacity for us to maintain our plants, and then the fixed cost associated with the cooperative. So it just doesn't cover all of it. And going from 20 to 60 would be a big step for those. And again, it's a fairness issue for the
Right.
Aunt Millie, as Brent mentioned at the end of the line.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the minimum bill. I kind of assumed that it was like a percentage of the bill, or, you know, that would go to the fixed costs and not, you know.
Yeah, just so everybody's on the same page, the minimum bill or customer charge or availability charge, depending on who you, it's the same thing. It is the amount of money that every member pays per meter a month, regardless of how much energy they use, regardless of